His name was Daniel Harper, a 36-year-old single father who once lived a normal life filled with simple dreams, honest work, and quiet happiness. He wasn't always broken. He wasn't always tired. He wasn't always afraid of tomorrow. Years ago, he had a steady job at a small manufacturing plant, a tiny apartment, and a wife who laughed easily. But life, cruel and unmerciful, took everything one piece at a time. First the factory shut down. Then bills piled up. Then stress invaded their home like poison. Then illness came. His wife passed away suddenly, leaving him alone with a 5-year-old son named Noah and a world that offered no mercy to a grieving man with no money and no safety net. From that day on, Daniel became both father and mother, provider and protector, strength and softness, even when he had none left inside him. Months passed into years of struggling survival. Job applications were rejected. Interviews ended in polite smiles and empty promises. Savings disappeared. Friends drifted away. Family ties weakened. Eventually, even the apartment was lost. Daniel and Noah moved from shelters to shared rooms, from shared rooms to couches, from couches to nights in cheap motels when money allowed, and sometimes, to nowhere at all. Through it all, Daniel never let Noah see him cry. He smiled when he was breaking. He stayed strong when he was empty. He carried his son's backpack to school every morning, even when his own shoes had holes in them. He skipped meals so Noah could eat. He told bedtime stories in the dark, whispering dreams of a better tomorrow that he himself no longer believed in, but desperately wanted his child to. On this particular evening, the rain was relentless, and the cold felt crueler than usual. Daniel had spent the entire day walking the city, applying for jobs, asking for work, offering labor, begging for opportunity, and receiving nothing. Not even false hope. His phone was dead. His stomach burned with hunger. In his pocket were exactly $12, the last money he had in the world, meant to buy bread, milk, and noodles for Noah's dinner. His son was waiting at the shelter, probably pretending not to be hungry, probably pretending to be brave, just like his father always did. That was when Daniel saw her. She sat against the brick wall of an abandoned storefront. Her clothes were old, torn, layered in mismatched fabric. Her hair was messy and unwashed. Her face looked pale and tired, eyes sunken, lips cracked from dehydration. A cardboard sign rested beside her that read, "Hungry. Homeless. Please help." She didn't beg loudly. She didn't reach for people. She didn't cry. She just sat there quietly, like someone who had already accepted that the world had forgotten her. People walked past her like she was invisible. Daniel slowed his steps. His mind screamed at him to keep walking. His fear reminded him of Noah. His logic told him that he couldn't afford kindness. His reality told him that he had a child to feed. But something deeper, something human, something wounded, something sacred, made his feet stop. He looked at her shaking hands. He saw the exhaustion in her face. He felt the weight of his own suffering reflected in her eyes. And in that moment, he didn't see a stranger, he saw himself. Slowly, painfully, Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled bills. His entire world. His last safety. His son's dinner. His tomorrow. He knelt down in front of her and placed the money in her trembling hands. No hesitation. No speech. No drama. Just kindness. Then he stood up, turned away, and walked back into the rain with empty pockets and a heavier heart. Not knowing how he would explain this to his son, not knowing how he would survive the night, not knowing that he had just given money to a woman who was not a beggar, not homeless, not poor, but one of the wealthiest women in the country. Because the woman sitting on that sidewalk was Eleanor Whitmore, a reclusive billionaire investor, philanthropist, and business mogul who owned corporations, hospitals, housing developments, and entire city blocks. A woman who had more money than she could ever spend in a lifetime. But she was also a woman who had lost her only child years earlier, fallen into deep depression, and disappeared from public life. Haunted by grief and guilt, Eleanor had begun walking the streets alone at night, disguising herself as homeless, searching for something she could not name: truth, humanity, meaning, or perhaps redemption. She wanted to see the world without filters, without privilege, without protection. She wanted to know if real kindness still existed. And that night, she found it. She watched Daniel walk away into the rain, his shoulders slumped, his clothes soaked, his back heavy with invisible burdens. She didn't cry. She didn't chase him. She didn't reveal herself. But something inside her broke open, something that had been dead for years. Not because of the money, but because of the sacrifice. Because she knew, in her soul, that man did not give from excess, he gave from emptiness. The next day, everything changed. At the shelter, Daniel was called to the front desk. A social worker looked confused. Papers were signed, names were verified, and then a black luxury car pulled up outside. Security guards stepped out. A woman in an elegant coat walked in, clean, powerful, calm, composed, and Daniel did not recognize her. But she recognized him. Eleanor Whitmore. She revealed everything. Who she was, what she owned, why she had been on the street, why she was testing humanity, and why his act of kindness had shattered her world. She told him that in decades of wealth, influence, and power, no one had ever given her something that truly mattered: sacrifice. Daniel collapsed into tears. Not because of money, not because of opportunity, but because someone finally saw him. What followed felt unreal. Eleanor paid for housing for Daniel and Noah. She arranged healthcare, education, therapy, stability. She personally funded Daniel's training for a new career in logistics management. She gave him dignity, not charity. She gave him opportunity, not pity. She gave him a future, not just help. But more than that, she gave him purpose. She created a foundation in his son's name, the Noah Hope Initiative, dedicated to helping jobless parents, homeless families, and struggling fathers rebuild their lives with skills, housing, and education. Daniel became the face of the foundation, not as a symbol of poverty, but as a symbol of integrity. Years later, Daniel stood on a stage in front of thousands, telling his story, not as a victim, but as a man who chose kindness even when he had nothing. Noah grew up in safety, education, and love. Eleanor found healing through service. And one small act of compassion on a rainy sidewalk transformed countless lives.